So in this video, we're going to look at what is inflation, why do we measure it, and which way to measure inflation is the best way from a consumer's perspective. Let's take a look. So what is inflation? If we're thinking about just one single good going up in price in the economy, like the price of apples, that is not inflation. Inflation is a general increase in the price of goods in the economy. So not necessarily all goods are going up in price, but many goods are going up in price. Why do we measure inflation? Well, we want to have a sense of how much more costly things are getting over time. And how should we measure inflation best? Well, there's two different ways of measuring inflation. One of it is based on what we produced in our country. It's based on our GDP, what's being produced. And it's the GDP deflator approach, which is a good measure to give us a sense of if GDP is rising from one year to the next, well, what portion of that's kind of attributed to an increase in the price level versus an increase in production. But the other way of measuring inflation, the CPI, Consumer Price Index approach, is much more useful from a consumer's perspective. Because the CPI approach looks at a basket of goods, so around 600 plus goods in Canada, that are being used to evaluate what would be the cost to buying the same basket of goods from one year to the next. So it could include like milk, pasta, juice, and a bunch of other things. And what this helps us understand is if you are currently earning a certain wage and you are able to afford this basket of goods, by how much would your wage have to go up from one year to the next so that you can keep affording this basket of goods? So if this basket of goods goes up by 4% from one year to the next and your wages only go up by 1% from one year to the next, well, over time, you're going to have to start cutting back on what you can buy. You cannot afford as much as before. If your wages are going up higher than the basket of goods, well, then you could afford more and more over time. And this is interesting from a worker's perspective, but it's also interesting from the perspective of someone that's about to retire. Because when you're retiring, if you don't have like a fixed pension plan and you just have money aside, well, you might plan things out and go like, if I stretch out this amount of money over this amount of years based on this interest rate, I should be able to collect $4,000 per month for the household, taking it out of our RRSPs. And you might think, oh, that's great. $4,000, I could easily afford everything I need. Cool. You could afford everything you need now, but in 25 years from now, when you're towards the end of your life, that $4,000 won't be able to afford nearly as much, especially if we go through some high inflation periods. So it's really important to consider how the cost of living changes over time. And we'll see that it's also very important for the government to try to target low and stable inflation. 2% is the target in Canada, with the range being from 1% to 3%. So hopefully in this video, you understand better what is inflation, different ways of measuring it, and what's the best way to look at it from a consumer's perspective. Catch you on the next one. If you found this video interesting, please consider subscribing or joining my class where I guide you to apply and expand on the information found in these videos to real life examples. Have a good day.